All right, guys, welcome back. So, we've got this nice little game so far. We're doing interesting stuff. But I want to kind of just take a moment aside to teach you the concept of functions. Now, look, all of this is a lot of code, right? As you can see, it's going to clutter your event graph very, very, very quickly if you don't get a handle on this. So what you can actually do is you can actually create a function to make sure that whenever you're repeating a lot of code, you can replace it with another chunk of code. I'll tell you what that means. So functions exist in all programming languages. Say you're calling this node, and then you're calling this node, and then you're calling this node, and maybe you're passing, the actor, maybe you're passing the actor or something. You're passing some information from overlap or something, and you're doing some 4-5 things, right? And you want to repeat this a lot, or you feel like this is too clunky or complicated. What you can do is just replace all of this by, let me just change this thing. You can replace all of this by one block of code called a function. A function is represented by f of x. You've used functions before. This, for example, is a function. You see this f. It's supposed to be a function. And you are essentially kind of replacing it. Now, functions have some inputs, and they can have some outputs. So you can have input, and you can have some output. And if this confuses you, don't worry. I'm just going to show you what a function looks like in a bit. And as you can see, when this actor comes in, this is actually an input into this node, so you can actually translate that and make sure that the function gets this actor input. So anyway, that's theory. Let's get to practice. Let's create a new function in our enemy intelligence, and let's just call it, I don't know, enemy jump, right? Maybe what happens, actually we'll call it enemy death sequence. Death sequence. All right, let's just give it a funny name. Let's give it an input, which is, location. Let's just call it location, which is a vector, right? Death location, let's call it death location. And what we'll do is, we have a lot of interesting stuff going on here, but let's just take this part, okay? Let's just take this part and make this a function, just these three things. So I'm going to press Command X, and I'm going to put it here, paste it here, okay? Control X and Control V, that's copy paste, rather cut paste, and I'm just going to spawn this, right? Just going to enemy death sequence this. And instead of this, get world location, I'll just send the location from here to show you what I mean. Right, so this is the input, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to call this enemy death sequence. As you can see, a function has been created, and if this is true, we do this, and the death location, I'll just call the mesh, and I'll get world location, just like what I did last time, and I'll plug it into location. So as you can see, this location will be fed to the function, and the function will feed it to whatever other function we want to use. Right, so this shouldn't change anything whatsoever. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, the particle effect came in, and the particle effect isn't coming in the event graph. It's coming in the function that we created, which you can actually go ham and make the player die and set some variables and maybe cause even more explosions and maybe make the earth shake, whatever. It won't clutter your main event graph. Otherwise, this thing could get just really, really, really long. And you might want to reuse the enemy death sequence for something else in the future. So just making sure that you guys understand the use of functions. It's a way to make your code shorter. One thing about functions, though, is that delays, this delay node does not work in a function. I cannot call the delay node in a function. It's not there. And that's a drawback of a function, to be honest, in Unreal. But for everything else where you don't need a delay node, you can definitely use the function. If you really want to use a delay node, you can use macros. A macro can basically make things shorter, so I can just create a new macro and I can have some inputs and outputs. They're very similar to a function. And you guys can actually go to Google, and there's an entire document that I've attached to this video about the difference between a macro and a function. We tend to use a lot more functions than macros. So yeah, we're function guys. Bye-bye.